My best friend, Leo, wouldn't stop pushing me to buy a condo. He dragged me to see this penthouse at least a dozen times, his voice a constant hum in my ear. Dude, trust me, the value on this place is going to explode. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. Worn down by his persistence, I finally caved. I scraped together my entire life savings, $1, $5 million, and got ready to sign. The moment the pen touched the paper, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. A woman's voice, urgent and low. Don't buy it. Our company built that tower. It's an unpermitted structure. It's scheduled for demolition in 6 months. My hand jerked. I looked up at Leo, who was leaning forward across the table, his face gleaming with anticipation. His eyes darted away for a split second, and I saw a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. And in that instant, I remembered the brand-new Maserati he'd started driving last month. 01, the tip of the pen, hovered a millimeter from the contract. That single drop of black ink felt like a tiny abyss, ready to swallow the last 10 years of my life. The sudden vibration of my phone shattered the nearly silent closing room. Leo, my best friend, sat directly across from me, a wide, expectant grin plastered on his face. The excitement made his features look tight and unnatural. He was more hyped than I was, as if he were the one about to close on $1 million deal. Alex, come on, just sign. Ignore it. What call could possibly be more important than this? His voice was light, but there was a sharp edge of impatience underneath. I ignored him, my eyes fixed on the unknown number lighting up my screen. On pure instinct, I put the pen down. The reception in here is terrible. I'm going to take this by the window. Grabbing my phone, I walked quickly toward the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, turning my back on him. Hello. The woman on the other end spoke in a hushed, rapid-fire whisper. Listen carefully, you have to walk away. That building is an illegal construction. I've seen the internal documents. It's coming down in 6 months, tops. Every word was a hammer blow against my eardrum. Who is this? My throat was suddenly bone dry. It doesn't matter who I am. I'm just an employee who can't stand by and watch a decent guy get fleeced. My conscience wouldn't let me. I heard footsteps approaching quickly from behind. Leo was right behind me, the friendly bro mask beginning to crack. Alex, who is it? Stop messing around. The developer, Mr. Vance, is waiting to hear from us. He tried to glance at my phone screen, his eyes burning with anxiety. I spun away, shielding the screen from his view, and muttered a quick got it into the phone before hanging up. The world went quiet. The only sound was the frantic drumming of my heart against my ribs. I turned around and looked at Leo, my face a blank slate. My stare seemed to unnerve him. He forced a strained smile. Spam call. Yeah, I said flatly. Selling insurance. He let out a visible sigh of relief, instantly slipping back into his role as my supportive best friend. See? Told you. Now come on, let's get this signed. This penthouse is about to be all yours. I'm going to be crashing on your couch every weekend. He threw an arm around my shoulder, trying to guide me back to the table. I didn't budge. 10 years. A decade of friendship, ever since we were kids in kindergarten. The memories flashed through my mind. Skipping class, getting into fights, dreaming about the future. He always said I was the only brother he ever had. I used to think so, too. But now, the way his eyes wouldn't meet mine, the tiny beads of sweat on his forehead, the forced enthusiasm of his smile, they were all tiny daggers twisting in my gut. It was a terrible performance. My heart turned to ice. This is a huge decision. I think I need to reconsider, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. Leo's smile froze on his face. Reconsider? What is there to reconsider? This location, this layout. You walk away today, and the price will jump another 50 grand by tomorrow. His voice climbed, laced with a raw, desperate anger. I picked up my bank card from the table, along with my unsigned copy of the contract, and shoved them into my bag. It's my money. I get to decide how I spend it. Without another look at him, I walked straight toward the door. Alex, he yelled behind me, his voice a mix of disbelief and fury. I didn't turn back. Stepping out of the sales office, the blazing sun stabbed at my eyes. I got into my car, started the engine, and glanced in the rearview mirror. I could see Leo standing on the curb, phone pressed to his ear, shouting, his face twisted into an ugly, unfamiliar mask. My blood ran cold. Pulling into traffic, I took out my phone and, without hesitation, dialed the unknown number. If this was real, Leo, you were going to pay. 02, I met the woman, Chloe, she called herself, at a discreet coffee shop in a quiet part of town. She looked younger than she sounded on the phone, with black-framed glasses and an air of nervous energy. She pulled a thick manila envelope from her canvas tote bag and slid it across the table. These are copies of all the internal files on the Azure Spire project. The demolition order, the rejected permit applications with the city's official stamp. It's all in there. Her knuckles were white from gripping the envelope. I opened it and began flipping through the pages. The contents were even more shocking than I had imagined. Substandard materials, unpermitted floors, falsified fire safety inspections. The glittering glass tower they were selling was nothing but a house of cards built on a foundation of lies. Leo is the company's star salesman. He's been trying to offload this penthouse for almost 6 months, Chloe said quietly. A few other wealthy buyers were interested, but they all backed out at the last minute. Something felt off to them. But you... She trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Only me, the brother he'd known for a decade, was the perfect mark. The sheep he knew he could lead to the slaughter. My hand clenched the documents, veins popping on my knuckles. By the time I left the coffee shop, the sky had turned a dull, heavy gray, mirroring my mood. When I got home, the atmosphere was suffocating. My parents were sitting on the couch, their faces grim. A fancy fruit basket and several boxes of expensive supplements sat on the coffee table. Leo stopped by, my mom said, her tone sharp with disapproval. He said you had the deal of a lifetime, and you just walked away. What has gotten into you? My dad chimed in. The kid's right. It was a golden opportunity. What were you thinking? He said the developer even gave you a personal discount. I looked at them, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. Leo had always been good at spinning a story. He hadn't even spared my own parents. There's something wrong with the building. I can't buy it. I explained, my voice tired. Something wrong with the building? I think there's something wrong with you, my mom shot back. Leo was just trying to help our family, and you throw it back in his face? Do you think just because you've made a little money you're too good to listen to anyone? It was the beginning of a long, pointless argument. Later that night, my girlfriend, Jessica, called. Alex, Leo told me about the condo. Why would you back out? He said it has the best view in the city. Think of how amazing it would be for us after we get married. I was thinking about our future. Why can't you see that? Leo is just looking out for you, Alex. Don't be so stubborn. Every question, every plea, was like a dull knife sawing at my already frayed nerves. My family, my relationship. Leo was using them all as weapons against me. I hung up the phone and locked myself in my room. It felt like I was the only sane person left, standing on the edge of a cliff while the people I trusted most were smiling, getting ready to push me off. A tidal wave of anger and isolation crashed over me. I had never felt so clear-headed, and I had never felt so alone. 03, I didn't sleep a wink. At 4 in the morning, I was in my car, driving like a ghost through the empty streets, back to that glittering, fraudulent tower. In the pre-dawn darkness, it loomed like a silent beast perched on the edge of the city. The construction site was deserted, save for a few dim work lights illuminating piles of carelessly stacked materials. I hopped the flimsy chain-link fence and walked onto the site. The air was thick with the acrid smell of cheap concrete and chemical sealants. Exposed rebar was already showing spots of rust. I ran a hand along a concrete support pillar, and a fine powder crumbled under my fingers. This was the solid, top-quality construction Leo had been raving about. I let out a cold, harsh laugh that echoed unervingly in the empty space. Back in my car, I fired on my laptop. The skills from my old life as a programmer were now my only weapon. I tethered to my phone's hotspot, and my fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling down the screen. Bypassing a series of outdated firewalls, I slipped into the city's public-facing municipal record server. I entered the parcel number for the Azure Spire and began cross-referencing the data. The sky outside bled from black to gray, then from gray to the pale white of dawn. Just as the first rays of sunlight hit my windshield, the result I was looking for appeared on the screen. The land's official zoning designation was stated in plain, unequivocal terms: industrial/commercial use only. Development of residential properties is strictly prohibited. There was irrefutable proof. The last, lingering shred of sentiment I had for a decade of friendship evaporated into nothing. Right on cue, my phone rang. It was Leo. I answered, but said nothing. "Alex, you've had all night. Figured things out yet?" His voice was smug, dripping with a condescending certainty. "I talked to Mr. Vance. He's impressed with your ambition. He's willing to knock another 5% off the price, just for you. That's a massive favor. If you don't show up today, the deal is off the table for good." His tone was now bordering on a threat. Listening to his utterly fake sincerity, I felt a surge of nausea. A white-hot rage boiled in my chest, threatening to break through my carefully constructed calm. But I forced it down. My voice was steady, without a trace of emotion. "Okay, we'll meet tomorrow. I'll bring the money." There was a stunned silence on the other end, followed by an explosion of triumphant laughter. "I knew it. Dude, I knew you wouldn't let me down." I hung up and closed the laptop. The game was just getting started. If this is how you want to play, Leo, then I'll play. And I'll make sure it's a game you can't afford to lose. 0 for the next day. I was the one who called Leo. He pulled up in that flashy blue Maserati, beaming. "Bro, I knew you were a smart guy," he said, clapping me on the shoulder, his smile wide and genuine for the first time in days. I put on my best greedy, slightly regretful expression. "Leo, man, I was an idiot yesterday. An opportunity like this. I can't just let it pass me by." Then I delivered the hook. "But honestly, just one penthouse for $1.5 million? I feel like we're leaving money on the table." Leo's eyes lit up. "Oh, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I round up a few of my investor buddies. We pool our cash, say $7.5 million, and we buy out the entire top floor. Think about the leverage that gives us with the developer. We could demand a much better price." My voice was thick with the kind of desperate hunger for money that marks a true amateur speculator. The sheer size of the number I'd thrown out left Leo momentarily speechless, then sent him into a state of pure ecstasy. A $7.5 million deal. The commission on that would be enough to buy a Ferrari to park next to his Maserati. "Yes, absolutely. Alex, you're a genius," he stammered, practically vibrating with excitement. "I'll call Vance right now. He's going to want to meet you in person." Watching him, completely blinded by his own greed, I had to suppress a smirk. Greed is the best bait. That evening, I contacted Chloe again and laid out my plan. Her reaction was one of sheer terror. "Are you insane? These aren't just con artists. Vance has ties to loan sharks, dangerous people. You're playing with fire." "No risk, no reward," I said, adopting the cavalier tone of a gambler. "And I'm not just looking to get my money back." Chloe was silent for a long time. Finally, she agreed to help. She would use her position to get me more critical internal data, specifically the company's organizational chart, and, most importantly, the details of their cash flow. After the call, I went back to my laptop. This time, my target was the fraudulent company's own internal network. In his efforts to impress me, Leo had sent me several internal marketing brochures. Embedded in the metadata of those files was the company's network IP address. For me, it was an unlocked door. Deep into the night, I moved like a predator through their digital corridors, silently infiltrating their main server. What I found made me catch my breath. This wasn't just a simple real estate scam. Client lists, forged contracts, financial records. All the data pointed to a massive, sophisticated money laundering operation. They were using the illegal high-rise as a front to attract huge sums of cash, which were then broken down and funneled to offshore accounts. I realized I was up against a crew of serious, professional criminals. My palms started to sweat, but there was no turning back now. I was already in the dark forest. The only way out was to hunt every last beast inside. 05 thanks to Leo's glowing recommendation. I got my meeting with the mysterious Mr. Vance. It was held in the private room of an absurdly luxurious, high-end steakhouse. Vance was a portly man with a thick gold chain nestled on his chest. He looked me over like a prize pig at a county fair. Following my script, I played the part of a newly rich tech bro who just had a massive buyout, eager to invest but clueless about how to do it. I wore an ill-fitting, cheap suit, but on my feet were a pair of brand-new, eye-wateringly expensive designer sneakers. Everything I said was about money. Mr. Vance, I didn't go to business school. I just know one thing, making money. You show me how to turn a profit, and I'm in. 7.5 million. When do I see a return? My blunt, unrefined approach clearly put Vance and Leo at ease. To them, a guy like me was the perfect mark, rich, dumb, and easy to control. Throughout the dinner, Leo was in rare form, singing my praises to Vance, talking up our unbreakable bond, and constantly reinforcing how much influence he had over me. I just sat there with a goofy grin, raising my glass of scotch every time they looked my way. Totally, Leo and I go way back. If he says it's a good deal, I trust him. The more sincere my smile, the colder my resolve. No one noticed the tiny, almost invisible glint from one of the cufflinks on my shirt. It was a high-definition micro camera and recorder. As I casually swirled the amber liquid in my glass, I adjusted the angle, capturing crystal-clear video and audio of Vance and Leo, their faces flush with arrogance as they bragged about how they'd paid off inspectors and how they dealt with investors who got difficult. Don't you worry, Alex. We got friends in all the right places. This project is bulletproof, Vance promised, thumping his chest. Yeah, man, just relax and trust us. Stick with me and Mr. Vance, and you'll be set for life, Leo added, slinging a drunken arm around my neck. I smiled, nodded, and downed my drink in one go. The scotch burned, but my heart felt like it was carved from a block of ice. Staring at the two predators who thought I was their fool, I felt only one desire, to personally escort them to hell. 06 The first step of my plan was to sow chaos. Using the client list I'd pulled from their server, I identified a handful of other potential victims who, like me, were on the verge of signing. I bought several burner phones and set up anonymous email accounts. Then, I sent them all short, cryptic warnings. Azure Spire. Be careful. Do your homework on the land zoning before you invest. I kept it vague, just enough to plant a seed of doubt. Once planted, suspicion has a way of growing like a weed. It didn't take long to see the results. Chloe told me that over the next few days, the office received calls from several major clients, all of them suddenly finding excuses to postpone their closings. Whispers and negative rumors about the Azure Spire's permits started circulating among real estate circles. Vance was furious. He ripped into Leo at a team meeting, accusing him of being unable to control his own clients. Humiliated and desperate to land my $7.5 million whale, Leo's attention on me became suffocating. He called me 3 times a day with updates, telling me not to listen to the smear campaign from their jealous competitors. He even offered to lend me a few $100,000 of his own money to help with the down payment. Dude, I'm putting my own cash on the line to help you get in on this. That's how much I believe in this opportunity for you, he said, his voice thick with fake sincerity. I stood by the window, watching the traffic flow below, feeling nothing but a deep, churning contempt. He bought his Maserati with money he planned to steal from me, and now he was offering to lend it back to me to steal even more. My best friend. Leo, I appreciate that, man. Really, I said, forcing a tone of genuine gratitude. But don't worry about the money. My partners and I have it all ready to go. We can wire it anytime. I could practically hear the greedy grin spreading across his face on the other end of the line. The fish was now biting with frantic hunger. It was time to tighten the line. 07, I told Leo that my investor group had the $7.5 million in liquid assets ready to go. But we had one condition. For an investment this big, we need to see originals of all the company's incorporation documents, the land deeds, and a master project contract, just for our own peace of mind. It was a perfectly reasonable request. The allure of a nearly $8 million cash deal was more than enough for Vance's crew to take the risk. Leo relayed my demand to Vance, and that afternoon, Vance himself called me, his voice trembling with barely suppressed excitement. Alex, my boy, anything you need, whatever documents you want to see, I'll have Leo bring them right over. As long as the money is real, we're an open book. He then offered me a groundbreaking discount he claimed he'd never offered anyone, but it came with a catch. To streamline the process and avoid some regulatory headaches, the payment can't come to our corporate account. You'll need to break it up and wire it to 20 different personal accounts that we provide. Checkmate. That was exactly what I needed. These were the shell accounts for their money laundering operation. All I needed was the evidence of the transactions. I pretended to hesitate, acting like any normal person would when faced with such a shady request. "Mr. Vance, is that safe?" "100%, he boomed reassuringly. "These are all accounts belonging to the families of our senior executives. Totally trustworthy. All big business is done this way, my friend." After a little more performative haggling, I reluctantly agreed. The next day, Leo pulled up in his Maserati and personally delivered a banker's box full of forged articles of incorporation, fake land permits, and fraudulent contracts. Each document was a masterpiece of forgery, nearly indistinguishable from the real thing. His face was flushed with the thrill of imminent victory. He looked at me like I was a walking, talking ATM. "See, Alex? Vance is being totally transparent. He's showing you everything." I took the box from him. It felt heavy, weighed down by the sheer volume of their crimes. I looked at Leo's face, contorted by greed, and felt a profound sense of calm. When a man is completely consumed by his own desire, his intelligence plummets. Vance, Leo, they had just handed me the rope and tied the noose around their own necks. All I had to do was kick the chair out from under them. 08, the final preparations were meticulous and intense. I locked myself in my apartment for 3 straight days. My desk disappeared under a mountain of empty takeout containers and energy drink cans as my fingers flew across the keyboard. My screen's a constantly refreshing waterfall of code and data. Chloe took a massive risk and sent me an encrypted backup of the company's entire accounting system. Combining that with the 20 shell account from Vance, I began to piece everything together. Slowly, on my monitor, a vast and intricate web of a money laundering network took shape. I could see every dollar that came in, track how it was split and transferred, and map its final destination at an offshore endpoint. The scale of their criminal enterprise was staggering. It wasn't just fraud and money laundering. I found records linked to violent debt collection and even illegal detainment. This wasn't a white-collar crime operation. It was a full-blown, organized crime syndicate. A chill went down my spine, but it only hardened my resolve. I started writing a script, an automated digital bomb. I set it with a single trigger. The moment I gave the command, it would, in less than 1/10 of a second, package all the evidence I had compiled, the audio and video recordings, the scans of the forged documents, the complete map of the money laundering network, and a detailed forensic analysis of the cash flow. Then it would simultaneously and anonymously email the encrypted package to the top 20 news organizations in the country, dozens of high-profile finance and legal influencers, and the official tiplins for the SEC, the FBI, and the state's attorney general. I would expose their crimes to the world all at once, leaving them no corner to hide in. With that finished, I contacted the other potential victims I had warned earlier. I told them the show was about to begin. I instructed them to be ready to file police reports the moment the story broke. I was going to bury this syndicate under an avalanche of media pressure and public outrage, cutting off any possibility of them using their connections to escape. The trap was set. I looked out my window at the city lights and took a deep breath. It was time. The day of the deal arrived. We met in Mr. Vance's lavishly decorated office on the top floor of the Azure Spire. The panoramic windows displayed a glittering cityscape. Vance, Leo, and a few other senior partners were all there, their faces glowing with greed and anticipation. I walked in carrying a large, black briefcase. "You got the money?" Vance asked, already on his feet. I placed the case on his massive mahogany desk and snapped it open. Inside wasn't the $7. $5 million they were expecting. It was a neat, tightly packed stack of $100 bills. $1 million in cash. The celebratory mood in the room instantly evaporated. Vance's face darkened. "Alex, what's the meaning of this?" I smiled, calmly pulling out my phone. "Relax, Mr. Vance. This is just a show of good faith. The remaining $6.5 million will be wired to your 20 accounts over the next hour." As they watched, I opened my banking app and initiated the first transfer. A moment later, one of the partners' phones chimed with a text alert. "It's here. 250,000 just came through," he shouted. Then a second phone chime, then a third. The sound of incoming transfer alerts filled the room, a symphony of greed that turned their suspicion into pure, unadulterated euphoria. What they didn't know was that these were ghost transfers. Using my knowledge of a security flaw in an obscure third-party payment processor system, I had initiated transfers that would generate an instant notification but were coded to be automatically reversed within the hour when the system ran its routine data reconciliation. For 1 hour, they would live in a paradise of their own making. And for me, that hour was judgment time. They popped champagne, hugged each other, and started celebrating the futures they would buy with their stolen money. Leo came over, glass in hand, and slapped me hard on the back. "Brother, I knew you had it in you. From here on out, it's nothing but the good life for us." His eyes gleamed with a repulsive, naked greed. I looked at him, raised my glass, and smiled back. Then, as they all watched, I pressed a single, discreet red button on my phone screen. The show was over. The trial was about to begin. The moment I hit the button, everything changed. The massive flat-screen TV on the office wall, which had been playing a business news channel, suddenly went black. A second later, it flickered back to life, playing an audio file on a loop. "Don't you worry, Alex. We got friends in all the right places. This project is bulletproof." It was Vance's voice, perfectly clear. "Yeah, man. Stick with me and Mr. Vance, and you'll be set for life." That was Leo's disgusting, fawning voice. The smiles froze on every face in the room. At the same time, their phones began to explode with notifications. Not from their banks, but from every major news outlet. Massive real estate scam exposed. The Azure Spire condemned AS illegal structure. Hundreds of millions in laundered money tied to Miami developer. Star broker preyed on lifelong friend in real estate fraud. One shocking headline after another, accompanied by my recordings and photos of their forged documents, detonated across the internet. Vance and his partner's phones started ringing off the hook. Furious calls from investors, lenders, and their crying families. The final, fatal blow came from their banks. Transaction reversed. Incoming wire transfer failed. The joyful chimes of deposits were replaced by the cold, sterile notifications of failure. Their 1 hour dream was over. The color drained from Vance's face, leaving it a pasty, sickly white. He collapsed into his executive chair, as if his bones had turned to dust. He knew he was finished. Leo simply crumpled to the floor, his eyes vacant, muttering to himself, "No, this can't be happening. How?" He couldn't believe, didn't want to believe, that the architect of his downfall was the loyal, simple-minded friend standing right in front of him. I stood up, straightened my suit jacket, and walked over to where Leo was huddled on the floor. I crouched down and looked into his desperate, shattered face. "When you bought that Maserati, Leo," I asked quietly, "did you think about our friendship, even for a second?" My voice was soft, but it hit him like a sledgehammer, shattering the last of his defenses. 11. The sound of heavy, frantic footsteps echoed from the hallway, followed by the deafening wail of police sirens converging on the building from all directions. Down on the street, a crowd had formed. The other victims I contacted were there, holding signs and chanting, their angry shouts of "Give us our money back," piercing through the soundproof glass. Vance and his partners panicked, making a mad dash for the fire escape. They were met at the door by a tactical team of police officers who swarmed in and slammed them to the ground. Cold steel handcuffs snapped around the wrists that had signed so many fraudulent documents. 2 officers hauled a catatonic Leo to his feet. As they dragged him past me, he suddenly thrashed wildly, his bloodshot eyes locking onto mine. "Why?" he screamed, his voice cracking. "Alex, I trusted you. I thought you were my brother." I didn't even look at him. There's no point in speaking to the dead. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Chloe. 3 words, "Thank you." I typed back a reply. I did it for me too. I hit send, then systematically wiped my phone, erasing every file, every message, every trace of what I had done, until it was nothing more than a factory reset device. I walked out of the office and slipped away through the chaos. No one in the swarming crowd of police, reporters, and victims paid me any mind. I was like a stone dropped into a lake. I had created a tidal wave, but the stone itself was now sinking silently to the bottom, its purpose served. 12 a month later, a semblance of normalcy had returned to the city. The illegal glass tower on the waterfront was demolished in a controlled explosion, reduced to a pile of dust and rubble. The news covered the trial extensively. Vance was sentenced to life in prison. Leo, as a key accomplice, got 15 years. Every single person involved was brought to justice. My parents and Jessica eventually learned the whole truth from the news reports. They called me, one after another, their voices choked with guilt and remorse, begging for my forgiveness. I told them, calmly, that it was all in the past. But some cracks can never be repaired. I blocked their numbers. With my original $1, $5 million, and a formidable set of skills, I started my own cybersecurity firm. Our first contract was a pro bono project, providing free data recovery and digital security services to all the small businesses and individuals who had lost money in the Azure Spire scam. Chloe quit her old job and became my first partner. She handles the business and marketing. I handle the tech. On a bright, sunny afternoon, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of my new office. Outside, the sky was vast, and the river flowed endlessly toward the sea. I had lost a false friend, a hollow romance, and a toxic family dynamic. But in their place, I had found myself again. I had won back my life, my future, and my self-respect. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to start over. And my new life was just beginning.